I started teaching in 1999 by taking over a teaching position at Pratt University for one of my coworkers, Liz Claiborne, where I was at the time. She went on a trip to Europe, and she asked me to fill in for the summer of 1999, and the trip turned out to be a permanent stay. She never came back. So I took over her position at Pratt, and was very successful there, and then came to NetCom a couple of years later, and then also at New York Institute of Technology, also in New York City, and I also got into, of course, corporate teaching and consulting with my company. So from 1999 to 2012, so 13 years. Well, the number one thing is to obviously explain to students complex technical topics in a way that's understandable. What a teacher should not do is to impress them with his knowledge, his or her knowledge, because that's not, they're not there to blow away the students with their knowledge or impress them. It's far more important that they explain and distill complex topics into a way that students can understand and absorb that information. Well, my teaching style came out of the fact that I needed to explain AutoCAD to myself. I learned it 3 years earlier in the summer of 1996 when I dropped out of college. And I learned it within about 8 to 9 months. I learned everything I knew to currently know about AutoCAD. And in order to teach myself a complicated program, I had no instructors. I had to explain it to myself. And I wanted to bring that philosophy into teaching, where I explain AutoCAD from the bottom up with very, very simple terms and allow the students to see the true core of AutoCAD, what it's all about, and then slowly introduce complexity later. The biggest challenge is to explain to students a very complicated program and not have them have a panic attack in class. And usually it's enjoyable and it's pretty straightforward. My method works very well by stripping things down to its simplest form. Sometimes the biggest challenge is when students just don't get it. And your challenge is not to say, well, anybody can learn this, really, you need to try harder, but rather I need to try harder to explain in a new and novel and creative way that the students can understand. That's the biggest challenge of teaching, because the topic is really the same thing, but there's so many ways to explain it, from the very easy to the very difficult. So you have to choose the easiest way possible for the students, any student to understand.